Hi, Madeleine here from Sonic Bloom. This time I'm going to cover clip automation, so the automation in the session view. This is a feature that was introduced in Live 10, and since then quite a few changes have been made to the clip view and also to extra features for automation. And so someone asked me a while ago if I could cover the topic, and it turns out there isn't all that much on YouTube that covers all of it, and so this is what we're going to look at today. So there's different ways how you can create automation in the session view within clips in Live, and the first one is to simply record it. So I want to record something here in the second track in Drift. I want to automate some parameters. And so the first thing we're going to have to do is to arm this track. Then we're going to have to make sure that automation arm is on, which is required. Otherwise, no automation will be recorded, both in session view and arrangement view. And then we're going to start session record. Okay, so as you can see, I've recorded 2 parameters, so you can do, as long as it's a loop clip, you can simply continue making changes. You can overwrite the automation as well if you haven't gotten it right the first time around. And once you've recorded automation, you can see these red dots on the parameters that you've automated. A lot of things can be automated in Ableton Live. If you're unsure, just simply try it. So one thing to note as well is if you record automation in the clip view, then there's 2 different behaviors that you can have. So the first one is with the mouse. So if you use the mouse, you have so-called touch behavior, which means that as soon as you let go of the mouse, the recording of the automation is stopped as well. But when you record with a MIDI controller, so a fader or a knob, then it has a latch behavior, which means that the recording of the automation happens until the end of the clip's loop, or the end of the clip if the clip is not looped. So right now we've recorded automation here, but it's also possible to record automation in multiple clips, and either you can arm all the clips that you want to record automation in, or you can go into the settings or preferences and go to record warp launch, and then here you can see record session automation in. By default, it's set to armed tracks, but you can set it to all tracks as well. Most of the time, keeping it on armed tracks will be most useful because you don't want to accidentally still be in session record and realize, oh, actually that track is maybe a little bit loud or whatever, and adjust that, because then you would record automation automatically. But sometimes it might be useful to just momentarily switch the setting to all tracks so you can quickly record automation in other tracks as well. So I'm just going to show that quickly. So let's close this again, and then you see this track is currently not armed. I'm not going to change that, and let's just start. And so on and so forth. I'm going to go back into the preferences, turn it back to arm tracks, because I prefer it that way. So we've recorded some automation now, but where can we actually find that? So the way it works in session view is it's actually recorded into the clips themselves, so not to the tracks as in arrangement view. And here in Live 12 now we've got 3 tabs. You can see here up top, notes, envelopes, and MPE. And it's the envelopes. And it's called envelopes because it offers you the opportunity to create automation or also modulation envelopes. So here you can see what I've recorded for the formant color, so this parameter here. And it's got quite a lot of breakpoints, as they're called here. And if we want to have less breakpoints, what we can do, we can simply select it. I'm going to do this with Command A, Control A on Windows. And then you can do a right click or control click, and you will see the option to simplify envelope. And so I'm going to do that, and now you can see it's a lot less breakpoints that are still available, which can be quite useful. You can undo this, of course, if you don't find it useful. And if I do a right or control click again, you can see we have other options as well. So let's say, for example, I don't actually like what I've done. So what I could do is clear envelope. You can see it also has a shortcut, which is Command and Delete on Mac or Control and Delete on Windows. And right underneath you see clear all envelopes. So anything that I had automated within this clip, so any other things as well, I could delete the automation for if I chose clear all envelopes instead. So let me just do clear envelope because I don't think that was all that great. So what I could do instead as an option is I could just, let's say, select this part, and then I can do a right or control click again. And then below here, you can see the option to insert shapes. So we've got sine, curve, triangle, saw up and down, rectangular, and different ones. So for example, I could just simply choose this one, and I could also select this again and say copy envelope. You can also see you can simply use Command or Control C to do this. Or another option would be to cut it, but then it wouldn't be available at this spot anymore. So I'm just going to say copy envelope, Control or Command V. And now we've got this as well. I'm just going to or maybe we want to change this, so I could just select it all again. And if I'm anywhere here, you can see there's basically, see these kind of white squares at the top and bottom left and also in the middle. And this way you can actually skew or like change the automation as well. So let's try this instead. I actually like this better, so I'm going to copy this and then paste it over here. And I could also basically take one of the sides and just skew this, for example. Do the same here, say like this. Let's have a listen. All right. So that's another option. Now maybe let's go to this clip where I'd recorded the panning, so you can automate things in the mix section as well, including the sends. So let's go to envelopes again. And so here, basically, I had recorded automation only in the second part of the clip, but not the first one. So I could also just click here and drag to add breakpoints. I'm just gonna take this here. Nope. Take this here to the bottom. And we're gonna have to go up, copy, paste. And as you can see, this one is not correct. So I could just move this here as well to change things. And you can simply click on a breakpoint when it's selected to delete it. Right, so we've got that. So let's have a quick listen to that one. So this is quite extreme, the way it changes the panning. It sounds quite unnatural. So what we could also do is create curves. And the way we can do this is we can simply press Alt or Option on Mac, and then we could create a curve this way. So I'm not going to continue on this, is just to show you things. Also, for example, let's say I don't want to have it go all the way to hard right, but I want to be able to set it to a fixed value. So what I could do is do a right click, select edit value, and then I could just type in 45, and I could do the same thing here and click on edit value and do -45 to have it to 45 left, and so on and so forth. Another option is, I'm just going to delete all of this. So I'm going to select all with Command or Control A, and then backspace or delete. And then I could simply use the draw mode to be able to draw automation. So I could either click up here to turn on the draw mode, or I could do this by pressing B. If it doesn't work, the computer keyboard is very likely on, and then you'd have to either turn that off first by clicking on it or with M, or you could also do Shift B to still be able to activate the draw mode. So now we could simply draw things in. So let's say I want to maybe automate something else. Let's say I might want to, let's have a quick listen. We could automate the filter cutoff, maybe. I'm going to set that back to the original, and basically have a look here what happens. So right now, if I click on this second macro, you see that it says celestial pattern tone. So this is the quickest way to select the parameter that you want to automate, or maybe just add it after you'd recorded the automation already. And click on this. You can also basically select anything from the options here. And another thing that can be quite helpful in certain regards, like for example, if I go to the drum rack, if I click here on envelopes, then as you can see, I have a ton of parameters available that I could automate just within the drum rack itself. And then it might be useful to click on only show adjusted envelopes once you've actually recorded automation for them, just to basically be quicker to find what's been automated. Let's go back to this one. So let's just simply draw something in here. I'm gonna let's try that. But what you could see is that it actually creates steps according to the grid setting we currently have. So you can either keep it that way. Sometimes that can be useful to work in steps, but you might want to have a different grid setting. So what you can do is go in here at the top right and then set it to some other setting. Let's say, for example, we've got triplet grids, so we're going to turn that off in the first place. And then you've got narrow grid or widen grid. So if you wanted to just have a more narrow or wider grid, you can also see that you can use Control or Command 1 to narrow it, Control or Command 2 to widen it, or if you need a triplet grid, it is Control or Command 3. But you can also turn the grid off completely, so you can freeform and you don't get any steps. And to do this, you can either untick here snap to grid, or you use the command which is Control or Command 4. So I'm just going to click on this one here, and I'm just going to redraw this. Let's try this. Of course, we can also make changes and so on and so forth, but I just wanted to show you that feature. And so I'm going to turn the snapping to grid back on. I actually got the 3, so had turned on triplet grid again. Okay, so we've got some automation here now. I could just continue adding more automation by drawing it in. Okay, so maybe we're not quite happy with it. We're gonna try to see where maybe the filter cutoff should be initially before we pull it up. Let's see, maybe here. And now what you might have noticed already is that the automation has been grayed out. And what that means is it's disabled. There's 2 ways how to re-enable automation. So the first one is globally, and that works with this button here, but that will automatically re-enable all automation, which might not always be what we want. But another option is to go to the parameter directly. So in this case here, the macro, and do a right click, and then you can re-enable automation. And above you can also see show automation. So that can be a quick way to switch to the automation curve to make changes as well. Let's say, for example, we want to have a slow fade in of the clip over time. So we want to automate the track volume. So this clip is 8 bars long, but it's also possible to have longer automations. And so we can click on this linked button here, and this will unlink, as you can see, the automation length from the clip length. So this is a looped clip, as you can see here. So we have the same parameters available that we have here in the beginning of the clip. And so we've got start, position, and length. We also have a loop switch here, which basically functions the same way as the loop button here, but for the automation. So we could have a fixed automation length where it starts at what we set it to and then ends where we set it to, and it would not loop. So I want to have it fade in and then maybe fade out over time again as well. So let's set the length to 16 bars, and then I could just simply have a fade in and a fade out again. And we could hold Alt or Option to add a curve. As you can see, it works. Even though the looped clip is just 8 bars long, it still continues for as long as you'd set it. So this is a bit loud. I'm going to set it to, say, -3 max. Right. So 2 more things that you might have noticed already. So here you can see a button for automation, but you also see a button for modulation. I'm not going to go into details for like what you can modulate and so on. I just want to talk quickly about the difference between automation and modulation, because it can be confusing for people. And so modulation is absolute, which means, as you can see here, I've automated the volume from -infinite dB to -3 dB and then back to -infinite. But we could also modulate this. So right now you can see it's also still selected, but the color is blue. So whenever it's blue, unless of course you're not using the Ableton themes, other themes might have different colors for automation and modulation set. Then here you can see, while you can modulate this, it actually goes from 0 to 100%. That is because it's relative. So for example, if I set it to 100%, let's say we're going to set it to a little bit less, then these values would be basically added or subtracted from the absolute values of the automation, or if there's no automation, the value that is set. So let's have a quick listen. And you can actually see here the difference that it creates. Let's go back. You see here, right? And last but not least, what happens if we have created all these automations in the session view within the clips, and we record that into the arrangement view, or we simply move it. So let's take the first clip we had automated and just simply copy it over, because, you know, let's be lazy here. If we go into envelopes, you suddenly see there is no automation and modulation buttons that you can switch between anymore. And that's because now the automation has been copied over as well, but it is available in automation lanes. So you can see that here. Let's quickly zoom in with the Z. And so anything that you had automated clips in the session view will be copied over as well if you move the clips or record the clips over to the arrangement view and vice versa. That should be it. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then, bye.